It's made it really difficult. Being in lockdown, the first lockdown affected me really, really badly.
An awful lot. I just want to be able to do what I want to do. I don't want to have to think twice about doing stuff.
COVID has stopped me from seeing my work colleagues predominantly, and my mum and dad.
Well, I used to do sports every day, so I can't do that. During lockdown, I couldn't see any of my friends, so it's really just kept me inside.
It made things like my anxiety and my depression escalate really badly.
COVID-19 has been around and prevalent in society for almost 2 years, with the first recorded death on the 11th of January in its origin country, China. The deaths started to climb alarmingly. But I don't want to talk about this yet. To understand what is currently plaguing the world, we have to go back in time, the beginning of some of the more well-known viruses. One of the first life-threatening viruses that is still around today and is still causing deaths is the flu. The first written mention of the flu dates back to 412 BC in ancient records. They mentioned flu-like symptoms being encountered in northern Greece. The term for influenza was coined in 1357 AD from the Italian word influence. At the time, it was widely believed that the flu outbreaks were caused by astronomical alignments. High-quality historical data from this time period is, however, sparse and sometimes difficult to interpret, since many respiratory diseases have symptoms similar to the flu. Classifying outbreaks dating back more than 300 years can be quite difficult. The 1918 influenza pandemic is often referred to as the mother of all pandemics. The so-called Spanish flu pandemic was the worst in history, killing up to 50 million people and still affecting 1/3 of the world's population. The Spanish flu, the first recorded pandemic caused by the H1N1 virus, struck in waves and killed its victims instantly, sometimes in hours or days. During World War I, the flu killed more American soldiers than fighting. 2 other flu pandemics occurred in the 20th century. The Asian flu of 1957, caused by the H2N2 variant, which killed 1.1 million people worldwide, and the Hong Kong flu of 1968, caused by the H3N2 variant, which killed 1 million people worldwide as well. In layman's terms, influenza is a virus that is continually changing. It rapidly undergoes mutations that change the properties of its H and N antigens slightly. Due to these improvements, gaining immunity to an influenza subtype, such as H1N1, one year, either by illness or vaccination with a flu shot, does not guarantee immunity to a slightly different virus circulating the following year. Basically meaning we may never find a legitimate vaccine for the flu, and is still a threat to today's society. SARS is an infectious virus that spreads by tiny droplets of saliva, much like the common cold and influenza virus. It was the first serious and easily transmissible new disease to appear in the 21st century, and it demonstrated a strong ability to spread along international air travel routes. On November 16, 2002, a severe acute respiratory syndrome outbreak broke out in China's Guangdong province. Foshan was the site of the first outbreak. Farmers, market sellers, and chefs were among those who were affected by the first outbreak. After people sought medical attention for the disease, the epidemic spread to healthcare workers. On February 10, 2003, the People's Republic of China notified the World Health Organization of the outbreak, confirming 305 cases, 105 healthcare staff, and 5 deaths. The World Health Organization coordinated the international investigation and worked closely with health officials in the affected countries to provide epidemiological, clinical, and logistical support and bring the outbreak under control. During the 2003 SARS outbreak, a total of 8,098 people were infected, according to the World Health Organization. 774 of them died. To be honest, not much information can be found about the SARS outbreak today, maybe because not much ever occurred from it. It never gained enough attention, and was swiftly shut down by the appropriate authorities. Or maybe the Chinese government deliberately stops the spread of SARS information. We will never know.
The coronavirus pandemic started in China, spread to Europe, and had reached the UK by the end of January.
The same family in England have tested positive for coronavirus. The first cases to be recorded in Britain.
Good afternoon.
Worldwide cases.
I'm sorry to have to tell you that today the number of deaths recorded from COVID in the UK has surpassed 100,000.
The coffins of a mother next to her two
Contained in
sons.
that grim statistic.
In November, they shared a
Years
funeral.
of
In
life
Iran,
lost.
hospital staff mourn a doctor's death from the virus.
New York is one of a handful of states that's now declared a state of emergency due to the coronavirus. Governor Cuomo deploying the national...
No one could have imagined what the next year would have in store. The nation experienced tragedy, sorrow, and isolation, as well as unbelievable levels of bravery, determination, and strength. The disease that tore us apart also brought us together as families, friends, neighbours, and strangers faced an uncertain future. 2020. Will this year be remembered as one to forget?
There's no need to sugarcoat everything. The world is in a dire state at the moment, even excluding COVID. We've had borderline wars, outrages, protests, murders, rapes, and countless cases of discrimination on top of a global pandemic. So it's safe to say that humanity has seen better days. But one factor of the virus seems to be overlooked. How did it even start? Where did it all begin? Nature is a highly effective bioterrorist. As new illnesses emerge, such as Ebola, SARS, to name a few, we've seen this again and time again. During the current pandemic, it has been claimed that people at the Wuhan lab generated a new disease, which was then discharged as an intentional act of bioterrorism. So how could we know for sure whether COVID-19 was a natural or bioengineered outbreak? The short answer is that it's very difficult. The World Health Organization has just revealed its strategy to explore the COVID pandemic's roots. The hunt will begin in Wuhan, China, where the novel coronavirus SARS-CoV-2 was first discovered. The virus is thought to have started in bats, but how it spread to humans is unknown. Other coronaviruses have been transmitted to humans through an intermediate animal host. For example, the virus that triggered the SARS outbreak in 2002 most likely came from raccoons or civets. It can take years to track down the source of a virus, if it can be done at all, and the inquiry will have to traverse the highly sensitive political position between China and the US, according to Linfa Wang, the virologist from Duke National University of Singapore Medical School. Ex-US President Donald Trump has been calling it a China virus, and the Chinese government is working to prove that it is not a Chinese virus. The political blame game has prevented vital details about ongoing research in China from being made public. Basically, long answer made short, it is extremely hard to pinpoint exactly how this virus began. Talk of bats and other meat being ingested and the virus being made in a lab are just a few conspiracy theories that touch the surface. But that's enough talk about how the virus began. How about where we are today? Boris Johnson, the current British PM, has stated that all lockdown restrictions should be lifted by June 21st. Since the outbreak of the virus, the UK has been in and out of numerous lockdowns and tiers, and to be honest, I think the whole population is fed up. The COVID-19 vaccine is currently being offered by the NHS to those who are most at risk from the coronavirus. The vaccine is available in some hospitals and pharmacies in England, as well as at GP-run local clinics and larger vaccination centres. It will be granted to people over the age of 55, people at high risk from coronavirus, people who live in or work in care homes, health or social care workers, and people with a condition that puts them at a higher risk. But that's enough me talking about COVID and how it's affected me and the world. How about we get some responses from some actual people? Sound good?
I'm Emily Tyler.
John Barlow. My name is Stephanie Barlow.
Ivelaw-Chapman.
Emma Ivelaw-Chapman.
Tracy Stevens.
Hi, my name is Cameron Ryan and I'm 18 years of age.
I'm 18 years old.
73 years old.
I'm 75 years of age.
I'm 16.
Recently turned 54.
Age 53.
It's kind of stopped me from working as well as I used to be able to. It's a lot harder to like do write-ups and things and actually like sit down and concentrate on my work.
COVID stopped us from playing golf and going out and socialising with our friends, which is quite important, but probably most important, it stopped us travelling, which when you're retired is quite an important aspect of getting around and seeing everybody.
Well, obviously there's the social aspect. Not that I had much of a social life, but I can't see many of my friends due to the restrictions.
COVID has stopped me from seeing my work colleagues predominantly and my mum and dad. It's the main thing. I have managed to see my local friends with dog walks and running. So yes, the main thing is it stopped me mixing with my work friends and mum and dad.
Initially, playing golf, playing bridge. That's about it really.
The main thing I suppose COVID stopped me from doing it's the social side, because a lot of things, because I've worked the whole way through it, have stayed the same, but it's that spontaneity and being able to meet up friends and family.
COVID-19 has stopped me from doing a lot in these past few years, mainly working. I've been on furlough since March last year. School-wise, obviously during lockdowns we were doing virtual learning, which was anything but beneficial to the way I was learning my course. My course media is very hands-on, had to go out and do filming. Obviously you can't do that from the confines of your own bedroom.
Being in lockdown, the first lockdown affected me really, really badly, and it made things like my anxiety and my depression just escalate really badly, and things like dissociation happen more often now.
During lockdown I couldn't see any of my friends, so it's really just kept me inside and I can't really do anything.
Not significantly, because we've got a big garden, so we're able to exercise. It's stopped us doing the things that we would like to do on a daily basis, say in socialising, going out for meals or going to the theatre. That's been a bit of a bugbear, but going to the golf club and seeing friends there, but other than that, it's been manageable.
My everyday life feels a lot more solitary. I feel lucky that I've had my children with me and I have still managed to get out and see friends and exercise and walk the dog and see dog friends outside, but it feels like my world has shrunk quite a bit.
My everyday life, not so much because of the fact that I've been working the whole way through it, but obviously making sure that everything's set up at home for the kids while they've been doing their homework has been different while I've been going out to work.
My everyday life, obviously during lockdowns, during COVID, it affected whether I could go to college or not. Being high risk, I had to pull out a little bit before everyone else, college-wise. But yeah, after lockdowns were over and we started going back to college, things changed a lot. Sort of, I could see my friends because they were in my bubble. I could see one or two of them at a time at school, pop to the park, but obviously you couldn't go out and do anything, couldn't meet up with big groups, couldn't go for a drink at the pub.
Personally, I don't think they handled it too great. A lot of other countries went into lockdown as soon as they heard about the virus, before it was even anywhere close to their country, for example, New Zealand. I honestly think they didn't do as good a job. They still did a good job, but not that great. They could have gone into lockdown sooner. They could have, especially with the first lockdown, they could have eased things in more. They could have actually thought about kids and their exams and how that's actually going to affect them, instead of just using the excuse of mental health. Things like schools, they kept them open the longest, but that's probably the place where most infections are going to happen, especially in primary schools, because kids don't really wash their hands.
Not brilliant, really. I don't think they've learnt the lessons from history that they ought to have learnt. They also could have followed the Asian countries a bit more closely by stopping or restricting people at the borders. They should have got into the lockdowns a lot sooner, as was advised. They've got the vaccination right, but they got the vaccination system right because they used local public health facilities, which was a smart thing to do, rather than going to these big corporate companies, which they did with the test and trace, which didn't really perform, or hasn't really performed very well.
Oh, Boris handled it poorly. If we look at New Zealand, they handled it great. They're out of lockdown, and there's just us. Well, it's not all the government's fault. It's a lot of people refusing to wear masks, but I feel they definitely could have done more.
Right. I think they were slow to react initially, really slow, borderline incompetent, as Europe closed their borders and we were still saying it was fine. So they were slow. However, I think they've handled the vaccination programme really well. I think they saw early on that the only way we were going to get out of this was to vaccinate everybody. So they ordered and paid for however many hundreds of millions of doses, which put us probably 3 months ahead of Europe. So in that respect they did well, but I think some of that was fluke.
On the whole, I've been quite impressed with the way that they've handled COVID. The one thing which I didn't like is the delays in actually putting us into lockdown. I think that could have made decisions much earlier than they did, but beyond that I think the support they've given people in general has been pretty good.
I'm not really sure. It's a mix. I think in the initial stages we should have gone into lockdown a lot sooner. Other countries were doing it, we were seeing how it was affecting them, and all just sitting there going, we'll be different, we're fine, we're okay. And then we saw it hit us hard, we're one of the hardest hit in the world. So I think we should have gone into lockdown a lot sooner. But I think the government itself, within the past, they've been trying track and trace and all of that. I think they're great initiatives and I think they worked well. But I also feel bad because obviously they're getting a lot of pressure from people, because obviously people's mental health are being affected during it. And people are becoming homeless because they're losing their jobs. The government can't furlough an entire country. People are still having to work. They're having to sort out literally building temporary morgues to put the bodies in. It's been hard, and I don't think people say, I don't know, if you'd have voted Corbyn instead we'd be fine. I don't think anyone was ever prepared or knew how to deal with just thousands upon thousands of bodies showing up every day. No one was prepared for that.